Anti-government Gen Z online protests have spilled onto the streets of Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal and Kenya. Thousands of Gen Zs in Morocco and Madagascar are also demanding radical change. What's going on?
The accumulation of problems provokes a revolution, and that's why the state has lost control. This is a revolution, not a simple removal of the president. No, it's a revolution. And the only solution to revolution is to accept the people's demands.
We claim our rights to education and healthcare. These are rights, not privileges. We have no use for stadiums.
Now, chronic water and power cuts have left a third of Madagascar's 30 million population without electricity. Protesters across the country are calling for an end to the rising cost of living, corruption and high unemployment that's currently hovering at 45%. They want President Andry Rajoelina to resign. Let's take a look at how events have unfolded. On September 25th, a group called Gen Z Mada rallied support using social media platforms. Protests over water and power cuts began almost daily in the capital, Antananarivo. Days later, Rajoelina dissolved his government and dismissed Prime Minister Christian Tsai on September 29th. On October 6th, Rajoelina announced the appointment of Army General Zafi Sambo as Prime Minister. In response, the protest movement gave Rajoelina 48 hours to resign. And on October 8th, the president met civil society members as protesters declined his invitation for what he called a national dialogue and called for even more protests. This is what he had to say.
I pledge that we will do everything in our power to accelerate the energy transition in Madagascar and implement all of the projects. If there are still power cuts in Madagascar within a year, I will resign.
Now, meanwhile, in Morocco, young people mobilized under the banner Gen Z 212. 212 is the country's international dialing code. About 1 in 4 young people don't have jobs, and they're demanding sweeping reforms in healthcare, education and social justice. They say the government is investing about $5 billion into the 2030 World Cup infrastructure instead. So let's now hear more from Soli Moeng. He's a columnist and political commentator. He joins me from Cape Town in South Africa. Thank you so much, sir, for making the time. I mean, what's driving this rising number of youth-led, or should I call them Gen Z-led protests?
Hello, Claudia, and thank you for the invitation. Look, I think it's a combination of things: bad governance in some of these countries, corruption, high levels of corruption, and I think also high levels of poverty, unemployment. You've quoted some of the percentages: 36%, 44% in Morocco and in Madagascar, you know. So all of these things create, and the rising number of young people who are coming out of maybe, you know, university, higher education institutions, and who are struggling to find jobs. So it's a combination of all things, but also government making promises after promises after promises. It's almost like in our own country.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's always the same reasons, like you're saying. But let's talk about digital tools, because I'm curious, are the digital tools fueling these protests? Because we're seeing activism over digital platforms like, you know, Instagram, TikTok, and we have Discord as well.
Well, I mean, these are just platforms. I mean, you can use them for anything you want, really. I teach online on digital tools. They're good for that purpose, but they're good because they enable people to connect, to communicate, to connect across the borders or within borders. I don't think that the problem is with the digital tools. I think the problem is misgovernance, it's corruption, it's the economies that are not growing rather, and young people, the numbers of young people who are growing who are not finding economic opportunities in their own country. So whether digital platforms exist or not, these things will not go away.
All right.
If change doesn't happen at governance level.
Indeed. And we've established the problem. Let's talk solutions now, particularly on unemployment, which is a global problem, but also because we're talking about the African continent, it's an African problem as well. I mean, have African governments failed to create jobs for young people? I know they have, clearly. So the question then would be, how can they catch up? How do we create jobs for this very qualified population, which doesn't have jobs?
I think it's a mistake to think governments can create jobs. Governments must create conditions for the private sector to invest and create jobs and on business opportunities. Not everybody who leaves school is going to must expect to have a job waiting for them, but the conditions must be conducive for them to start their own businesses. There should be opportunities for government when there's reduced corruption, when there's reduced demands from investors to put money under the table to make favors for politicians. Maybe there'll be more interest by the private sector, both local private sectors in different countries, and people FDI, if you want, foreign direct investment to come in. But when people are not able to see policies that are clear, that are friendly towards business, that create an opportunity for them to see long term, they will struggle to. They will not want to come into the different markets.
Indeed, but then, you have mentioned the solutions, but let's talk the practical solutions because, we always have very good policies on paper, policies to get rid of corruption, policies to create the conducive environment that you're talking about, but we've never seen results.
It's because a lot of times you find that when there are laws, the laws apply to some people, not also to some people. And I'm including my own South Africa, where people commit crime, they steal money, but they still walk around as lawmakers and without anything happening to them. I think that people across the continent, maybe across the world, they're tired of these kind of Orwellian, animal farm-esque environments where you have the wrong people in government to make policies, people who've never... So a lot of times to become a politician, you don't need education. You don't need to be qualified. You just need to be able to speak well on stages, even to sing well and to say all the things that people want to hear. But you still need to find a way to work with professionals to come up with policies that are not based on the pre or Cold War era, period. Policies that look forward. You need to integrate things like artificial intelligence in a smart way. There are opportunities. Africa, for the agrarian economy in Africa, has got huge potential, but there are not enough the right policies, the right tools, the right investments, and the right skills that are given to young people, that should be given to young people to explore the entire agrarian economy, from growing foods to food processing, all the way onto the shelves. So I think that there's a lot of laziness, there's a lot of reliance on old policies, Soviet-style policies that don't work anymore, and usually you have the same people who stay in power forever, and at some point they run out of new ideas, but they still think that the right people to stay in power. And I think that it's important for the normal Africans, if you want, the civil society in Africa across the continent to stand up and be clear about wanting to be co-creators of the future Africa. They can't just leave it to the political elite that is only interested in itself.
All right, let's talk about Madagascar because, power cuts and water cuts and corruption and unemployment and all of that triggered the protests. And we've seen President Andry Rajoelina on October 8th ask the population to give him 1 year to fix this. Never mind, he's been in power for more than a decade. Combined, he's been in power for more than a decade. Can he fix this in a year?
No, it's almost like these politicians copy from one another. It's happening here in South Africa. Let's have a national dialogue. National dialogue for what? You've been in power for 30 years and you want a national dialogue? I think that it's very unfortunate because they do these things because they know that people fall for it. I think it's a good thing that those youngsters in the Gen Z Madagascar is pushing back against these things. Maybe he must go. There must be fresh elections, but I think that more inclusion of younger people into the political spheres, into policy making, is what is needed. Citizens have to stop sitting down when people in government continue to abuse public office and public resources. And hopefully more and more of them will stand up. Of course, we don't want violence. We don't want people to be killed and to be hurt or infrastructure to be damaged. But it seems like it's the only language that politicians understand. Without these youngsters standing up to say, no, enough is enough, Andry Rajoelina would not have made the promises that he made. And even then, he's just kicking the ball down the road because he knows that buying more time will enable him to enjoy the fruit of being in office without disturbance. But I think that people should say, no, it's enough, enough is enough. Not only do we want a different government, we want a bigger voice, a stronger voice for young people into where the country goes from here.
Right. And, as we wind up, sir, is it all doomed, though? Because the question then would be, are there some African countries that are meeting these demands by the youth? And if there are, just what are they doing?
No, I doubt it. People might cite countries like Botswana or Rwanda, but I think that a lot of times in these countries, the young people or the people in general are afraid to speak out because the government reaction tends to be very violent and swift and immediate. So the fact that people are not crying doesn't mean they have no reason to cry. I think that the entire Africa has so much potential, but it's always led by wrong people from the years of independence. And it's important that we talk about this. And there are smart people who live in the diaspora because they can't even go back to their own countries. The minute you speak out, you're in trouble. So I think that Africa generally needs to look into the mirror and ask itself, what does it want to be? It can't forever be begging the world to give it aid. And a lot of the aid anyway doesn't end up where it's supposed to go. It ends up in the hands of the elites in politics. So something has to change if Africa wants to ensure it doesn't have the same conversations over and over again.
Absolutely. Great place to end it. Something has to change. Thank you very much, Salim Owaenge, columnist and political commentator, for your time and your contribution.
It's a pleasure.
Still to come here on Africa Matters.
I am Palum David in Abuja with the story of how Nigeria is attempting to reform its tax system through the introduction of new laws.
To Nigeria now, which has one of the lowest tax-to-GDP ratios on the African continent. But the Nigerian government hopes new tax laws will almost double its tax-to-GDP ratio to 18% by next year. Officials say the reforms will boost revenue and ease doing business. But as Palum David reports, some Nigerians remain skeptical.
Dominic Eguda runs a construction, information technology and publishing company. Like many business owners, he is closely following Nigeria's new tax reforms.
While we were paying 30% before, now we should be paying 25%. So it's going to give us more money as a business person. And even as staffs, your personal income tax, formerly when you earn even as low as 50,000, 80,000, you tax your personal income tax. But as it is now, with this current act, when you earn less than ₦1 million, you are not paying tax.
In June this year, the government announced that total tax revenues had surged to about $9.5 billion, boosted by new revenue sources, more people paying their taxes, and cracking down on tax evasion. In addition to broader structural reforms to ease and harmonize tax collections, President Bola Tinubu signed other laws including people earning up to ₦1 million or about $650 will be eligible for a rent relief of about $130. Essential goods and services including food, healthcare, education, power, baby products and rent are now exempt from the mandatory 7.5% value-added tax. Small businesses with an annual turnover below $33,000 will no longer pay income tax. And charities, schools, cooperatives, and religious groups also enjoy exemptions if their income is not from business activities.
When these new laws take effect by January 1st next year, the government expects them to transform Nigeria's tax system, thereby boosting revenue, improving the business environment, and attracting both local and foreign investments.
But on the streets, reactions about the new taxes are mixed.
When they start paying tax, what are they going to use our tax revenue for? What have they used our mineral resources money for? And other revenue they generate from the country, what are they using it for? So is it when they start extorting money from the citizens that they will now make the country better?
And others are left with questions.
Like a boat driver or a POS owner that all he does is receive people's money and transfer out. Are those people going to get affected?
Experts say awareness is key.
The major languages spoken at state level in various states, pick out those major languages and break down the tax law into those languages for people to understand better. Hold town hall meetings, carry out TV sensitization, radio jingles that will help people understand better, what the new tax law entails.
As the government rolls out the reforms, Nigerians wait to see if promises of revenue and investments will translate into better infrastructure and services for them. Palum David, Africa Matters, Abuja.
And as the tax net widens in Nigeria, fishing nets are empty for fishermen along Kenya's Lake Victoria. A recent report by the Worldwide Fund for Nature shows that freshwater fish are also on the decline in many other African countries. Kubra Akoch tells us why.
Lake Victoria appears to be bustling with fishermen in boats and markets full of fish. But beneath the surface, fish stocks are drying up.
Back in the days, we would get like 200 kilograms per day. And nowadays, even getting 220 kilograms is a very big challenge. And now it seems like the numbers are going down.
Some fishermen are turning to cage farming, raising fish in enclosures to make sure they get a harvest.
Traditional fish method, like casting net, it was a gambling game. You will go there, fish, and hopefully you will come with fish. But using this caging fish, you are sure, because you know your fish is well protected there. You monitor them, and after some period of time, you are sure of your yield.
The decline in Lake Victoria is not an isolated crisis. A new report by the Worldwide Fund for Nature warns that 1 in 4 freshwater fish species across Africa is facing extinction. The organization says at least 170 fish species are critically endangered, and 9 of them have already vanished.
We are faced with invasions by non-native species, including water hyacinth, and other aquatic species, including, for instance, the Nile perch in Lake Victoria, Salvina molesta in southern parts of Africa, including, for instance, in Lukanga swamps in Zambia. We are also faced with pollution within our freshwater ecosystems, especially within the wetlands, and this is driven by and large through industrial waste, pesticides, and other chemicals which come out of agricultural use, but also causes like mining.
The WWF is calling for urgent action, such as cleaning up water, controlling invasive species, stopping illegal or destructive fishing, and stepping up research to fill in the data gaps. Otherwise, the lives and livelihoods of millions of people who depend on freshwater fish could also be at risk. Kubra Akoch, Africa Matters.
To the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, where despite several peace deals, clashes between the Congolese army and the M23 rebels persist. Thousands have been wounded and there are hundreds who have endured amputation. But as Dominic Brian Omondi reports, many of those amputees are finding newfound hope.
Melissa Hamuli survived the M23 rebel attack and seizure of the city of Goma in January. Even though her legs were not amputated, she couldn't walk.
My situation is very bad. Everything has changed. I've not worked since the bombing. I no longer work, and neither does my mother, so we have nothing.
She found help at the Shirika la Umoja Orthopedic Clinic, supported by the Red Cross, that has long produced prosthetic limbs. Being able to walk gives her the inspiration to move forward.
War is not a good thing. It causes many to be disabled, others die. Everything changes. War is truly evil. We pray for it to end and that the country's leaders have mercy on us and stop this war that causes us so much suffering.
Amani Jerome was not spared either. His wife and 4 children were killed in an April attack by armed groups in eastern DRC.
The same day, I was taken to the hospital, and that night my leg was amputated. After that, they continued treating me and told me that they had no other solution but to give me a prosthetic, so I could walk like everyone else.
The center has treated more than 800 injured patients, mostly amputees, since January this year.
In previous years, the numbers were not this high. Back then, most people coming here were born with disabilities, but today there are far more amputees than before.
But it now struggles with limited resources, pushing workers to produce even more artificial limbs by themselves to meet the surging demand. The center provided 326 prosthetic limbs during the first half of this year, compared to 422 in 2024.
We see people who were fitted 2 or more years ago returning because prosthetics last 2 to 3 years for adults, and for children we must renew them every 6 months due to growth. So all these individuals have to come back each year or every 2 years, including those newly injured this year. For us, the needs just keep growing.
And these amputees hope that despite the challenges, their country will also move forward in its path to peace. Dominic Brano-Mondi, TRT World.
And finally, we head to Nigeria, which has become the first African country to host the first all-electric powerboat racing championship. It's the fourth continent to hold an E1 race during its series' second season, as the championship seeks to expand. Brenda Zeda-Radido has more.
Chilly weather didn't stop Nigerian powerboat fans from coming out to watch the finals of the E1 Lagos Grand Prix. Among those in the crowd at the landmark event was former Ivorian football legend Didier Drogba and basketball legend LeBron James. The celebrities have been helping drive global visibility of the emerging sport.
It's been a wonderful experience. I've not seen this kind of water race before. I've seen Formula One, I've seen professional golfers, but this is my first experience with the water something, and it's been a wonderful experience for me.
It's amazing to see that Lagosians can enjoy this type of sport, and Lagos State is doing a fantastic job at enhancing this side of tourism in Lagos, Nigeria. And I mean, a lot of people turned up and it's fun.
The boats were crewed by men and women drawn from various sporting fields, such as powerboating and motorsport. Gliding just above the water, the pilots steered battery-powered hydrofoil boats designed to reduce drag and cut emissions. The Brazilian team, owned by tech entrepreneur Marcelo Claure, won the race.
This win in Lagos for Team Brazil is very important. It's the best result so far in the season, so it's amazing.
Indian cricket icon Virat Kohli's blue team came second, followed closely by Ivorian football legend Didier Drogba's crew. Having drawn in new audiences and famous fans, E1 is planning to expand the number of teams racing. The series is looking for more than $23 million of new capital, as it targets a valuation of more than $580 million by 2030. And that could benefit countries like Nigeria that have proven capable of hosting major international sporting competitions. Brenda Zeda-Radido, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the Gen Z protests and what can be done. Leave your comments on our Africa Matters YouTube page or on X. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Grace Korea Kanja.